Namaste and welcome to Indian History and Archaeology with me, Dr. Lajwanti Shahani. For today's Archaeo Talks, we have an eminent guest with us, Dr. Sunil Gupta, who is former director of Allahabad Museum, which is a national level museum under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. He is a recipient of several illustrious awards and fellowships, including the UK Visiting Fellowship Award, which he received in 1997. Dr. Gupta has several noteworthy publications to his credit, both national and international. Also, a similar number of excavations that he has joined and worked at or visited, both national and international projects that he has undertaken on his own as well. He is also the editor of the Journal of Indian Ocean Archaeology. As I said, a very illustrious and eminent personality. There is a lot to tell you about Dr. Gupta, which of course you will be hearing from him during this interview itself. I will also be adding all of this information in the description below this video. So please take a couple of minutes to go through the description and know about his illustrious career as well. So join me in welcoming Dr. Sunil Gupta. Welcome to this channel, Sunil. It's really a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Dr. Sani. Of course, I call you by my name, which all colleagues call you, Lajo.
Yes, you can
But,
call me Lajo. That's fine.
Thank you. And
We've got a long history also over here, both of us coming from Deccan College. So,
yeah, yes. It's amazing kind of experience to have been in Deccan College, to have been moving from Allahabad Museum, where I worked for more than 30 years, to Deccan College to be doing my PhD work and then exploring the course from there. The colleagues with whom I'm completely in touch today very closely. It's yes, now that you mentioned Deccan College, can't help but reminiscence in its 200th year. So that is amazing.
yes, it is the alma mater in many ways, really, for archaeologists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, do tell us about your journey, really, in these 30 years. Do you want to start with your PhD itself?
Well, no, I would like to, in fact, go a little before that because I have
Right.
been actually a rolling stone. My academic profile is reads a little, it's a little crazy. I did my BA honors from St. Xavier's, Calcutta, in the subject English literature. So
Okay.
basically, I was influenced by my father, and I had pretensions, still have pretensions of being actually a writer in the literary sense. And that was a beautiful time that we had in college. Very, very good teachers. And then, of course, I moved to Delhi after that because that's where my father moved. Our home was there. So um, with the purpose of, yes, of course, I mean, I was always interested in history. I was always interested in archaeology. I mean, the past fascinated me. So that was also a driving force. So I switched to do my MA in history, which was, of course, in modern history. But we
Right.
had world history, like history of, apart from the freedom struggle, we had a history of Japan and China. And so that part of history, and in fact entire history, uh, was fascinating. And I took it as a kind of like in storytelling about the past, so that my
Right.
responsibilities were quite you know connected to that. And then actually what really happened was that I had a kind of epiphany, a kind of critical moment when I finished my MA, and I was, working for television, and then I was doing my MPhil. I sort of felt constricted in just, being attached to history in the bookish way. So I felt a little confined, and so I thought of the further going back into the past, and I thought of archaeology. So then I, absolutely decided that I will bring my history and bring my literary sensibilities into archaeology, essentially
Great.
because I felt that this could be a study of the past with a bit of outdoorish experience, right? So that actually drew me. So, of course, I took the exam of the Institute of Archaeology. In 87, I was selected, but for many reasons, I did not join. Essentially, at that time, I was, wanting, some kind of a paid assignment. And so in 88, when the government of India was, it had sort of taken over the Allahabad Museum from the municipal corporation. And it was one of the four national museums. So the ministry was looking for good people. And then the then director, Dr. S.P. Gupta, who was deputy director in National
Sorry about
Museum, Delhi,
that.
was going to Allahabad to
We'll
join.
ignore her.
And yes,
We'll ignore my we'll ignore my pet over there.
she also needs to participate, she's interested maybe in archaeology, so that's very sweet. Anyway, so he offered me, that you come and join me in Allahabad, and I promise you that of course I was applying for postdoc PhD programs in the US, and I'd gone in fact to him for a recommendation. So he says, you come and work with me. And he was an eminent archaeologist, art historian. He had written so many books. That was a good opportunity. And in 88, I went to Allahabad and joined him. And ever since, I have been there, and I retired this 30th of September after an 8-month extension of my service. But what the promise was that, I immediately met some great archaeologists. With Dr. Gupta was trying to bring the Allahabad Museum to a really nationally, was very competitive. So I remember we had in fact visited by the late Professor Maurizio Tosi, a friend who remained a friend unto the last till he passed away in 2018. He was a giant in all respects. And I would say one thing, that as I look back on my career, also, my research supervisor, Professor V.N. Mishra, and through Professor Tosi and Dr. Gupta and Professor D.P. Agrawal, I was connected to Professor V.N. Mishra in the Deccan College. But yes, I had to convince him and convince the Deccan College faculty that I was, good enough to make the switch from history to archaeology at the PhD level. And I had chosen my subject as the archaeology of Indo-Roman sea trade, specifically Roman Egypt to Peninsular India, archaeological patterns of trade. And for about more than a year, I researched that on my own, building up the case to enter the PhD program in Deccan College. And finally, they were convinced. And I remember Professor V.N. Mishra, Virendranath Mishra ji, one of the sweetest person I've ever met. But he told me very clearly, that was in 1991, that look, I am a prehistorian. I am taking you under my charge. Just remember one thing, and something which we all believe in now. It takes years and decades to build a reputation, but it will take a day or two for that thing to come tumbling down. So don't do anything in your research that I've taken you on that basically makes me feel like affects my credibility. And I promised him that. And then of course it was from 91 to almost 97, of 6 years, 7 years of association. As you know, Lajo, that we were going out to, I was all the time going from taking my leave and going from the museum to Deccan College or to the field in Balathal, the protohistoric site outside of Udaipur that attended short periods of 3 seasons, but very
Right.
good team under Professor Mishra, Professor Vasant Shinde, who's a very close friend, Professor Mohanty, another close friend, so many other colleagues. I cannot name all of them, but still in touch. So that was an amazing experience. And then, of course, in '98, I submitted my thesis. But before that, I got the Nehru Fellowship to the UK to work on amphora in Southampton with Professor Peacock. And after my thesis, immediately I got a 1 year postdoctoral fellowship to go to Japan as a JSPS postdoctoral fellow.
Yes.
I could work in Nichibunken, a premier institute, but by this time, I this opportunity of two swift fellowships, following one after the other, together with my PhD, that actually, basically broadened the horizons from Indo-Roman to Indian Ocean archaeology. So after that, of course, on my return from my postdoc in Japan, the decades which were of my 40s and 50s were spent in travel to conferences. Also, I got the opportunity to excavate the site of Kamrej near Surat, which was I identified as an ancient port of the
Okay.
Indo-Roman, trade. So that was an Indian Archaeological Society, and yes, I did have the opportunity to be PhD examiner at some illustrious European universities like Bergen and Uppsala and Copenhagen. I could
That's
join
great.
the University of Dar es Salaam as a consultant in the excavations in Zanzibar, and I of course, at the same time, I was part of the museum movement, and Allahabad Museum is located in a very rich archaeological area, as you know, the Gangetic Valley, the Middle Ganga Valley,
Right.
and the great site of Koshambi, which is almost, it was a huge city, is just located 60 kilometers from our museum, several other
Mhm.
sites. So I also got an opportunity, apart from exploring the Indian coast and looking at, the explorations of parts of the East African coast and Oman and also Yunnan in China. I also did intensive explorations in the Gangetic Valley. And in 2008, I also led excavations. It was a kind of salvage archaeology operation at a site called Bankat, early historic, outside of Allahabad. So there have been these very active and explorations, archaeological explorations with colleagues of the Gujarat coast, of Maharashtra and
Maharashtra,
Karnataka.
I think I remember you'd excavated or explored somewhere near some Maharashtrian coastline sites also.
Yes, that was the caves, the early historic Buddhist caves at Kuda
Right.
and Chaul. So those were very early explorations, and
Mhm.
also the Karnataka coast and Arikamedu. So there was this kind of very active engagement which I did while being based in the museum, and also
Okay.
participating in the museum movement, which means that I was trying to, because we have a very rich archaeological collection in the Allahabad Museum,
Mhm.
sculptures, terracottas, coins, beads, a huge archaeological wealth which I could
Right.
expose myself to. So the coastal part and the Gangetic part gave me a kind of sort of cross-sectional view of archaeology, of human society. Also the experience of working, when you go as an archaeologist deep into the villages, you live there,
Mhm.
so you, as you know yourself, that you
Yeah.
work with the people, and then you come for academic conferences, you meet another segment. So there was this fascinating cross section of society that you engage with, which humbles you in many
Right.
ways. And then,
And
of
of course,
course,
there's
finally,
travel, a lot of travel that you get to do also.
Yes, of course. The travel of of various kinds that you would be part of community archaeology or rural areas, and you could then be traveling for conferences abroad, and there would be another atmosphere there. But you do not remain restricted to one societal strata if you're
Right.
doing active archaeology, which is, I think, fascinating. It takes you, gives you a bigger worldview personally. And then of course I got the chance to direct my own museum for the last since 2017, and it was in 30th September, where I was of course engaged in modernizing the museum. I believe in modern infrastructure, so I wanted, to build air-conditioned galleries, to public a kind of comfort to come and see things and to gain knowledge. So yes, so there has been this a kind of. I was also associated with INTAC for 5 years. I was the convener of the Allahabad chapter of INTAC, which took me to a lot of architecture and again public heritage. So I would say that these 30 years plus have given me multi-faceted professional experiences, which I treasure and definitely would like to share with the younger generation, and so that more people get interested in making heritage their career.
Right. I have my pet going off again over here. But this is something, yes. I mean, how did you sort of manage the two sides of archaeology in terms of active archaeology in excavations and the museum where you are displaying the artifacts from archaeological excavations, presenting that to the public also? How do you manage
Right.
the two separate aspects there?
So yes, Laju, I think what you're referring to is, there is a very deep, hard, technical part of archaeology and heritage, which basically, as Professor Tozi used to say, that archaeology is really not history. It is also large parts of it is like applied earth science. So a lot of laboratory work on bones, on plants, and so there are data sets which are derived from highly scientific applications, and these data sets, together with of course your mainstream excavations and explorations, come together, and there are these are technical databases. So when you interface this with museums, I think you're absolutely right. The challenge is how do you process these technical, whether it is archaeological databases, or even art history techniques, or things like iconography, and which could become very technical. How do you process these to in language and narration and storytelling, keeping the the basic concepts intact to the general public? That, I
Right.
think, is the uh, way we talk about heritage in the public sense. And I think that
Mm.
that is what differentiates museums from universities, which engage in a lot of research and teaching at a certain level. But here we are, as an institute, Allahabad Museum was a research institute also, in the sense what we have like Harvard or Yale University museums and other research museums.
I think
But
even in Mumbai, the former Prince of Wales Museum, or Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum now, they
right,
also conduct courses
right,
at the museum
right.
itself, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So
of course.
do
So
tell us about the courses. What
yeah,
kind
so
of
we have,
courses?
yeah, so we also, for several years we conducted a course on, Indian art, culture, and museology. And apart from that was a one-year course, which uh, actually has taken a pause right now because of some affiliation issues. But I remember that, we actually had scholarships for Northeast students there, and it was almost a campus, and we had external faculty coming in, and the components were not art history, archaeology, conservation, museum exhibitions, whole range of, modules were taught. But apart from that, the Allahabad Museum had its what you call art appreciation courses in the summer. Because of COVID-19, we took a hit. So we really didn't go to this, some of them to online format, but we are hoping to come back to. But these were, a 1 month art appreciation courses with external faculty also invited, which would explore everything from modern art, like Bengal school paintings, to miniature paintings, to ancient sculpture, coins. And also we had workshops, very popular workshops in conservation, which basically had housewives, had students, and all sorts of lay professionals coming. And we had experts in conservation who would teach them very simple techniques, which they could practice in their homes, like, how do you, conserve your old books, or all of us at homes have, some forms of
Yeah,
antiques, family heirlooms. So whether it's paper or metal, they were very active, tips in this popular conservation course to
that's wonderful.
teach. So we have a very active, the Allahabad Museum was still, it has very active sort of educational, programs, popular outreach programs involving schools. We have interns and officers who, in my time, went out into the rural areas, and we had the targets of bringing rural, children from rural schools to the museum, and we
Right.
sensitized them, and we had busloads of students coming from as far away as Agra to the Allahabad
Mhm.
Museum. So yes, so you struck on something very important, that the one of my passions is not to remain isolated or confined to the technical part, but to bring all this, into the public domain. Absolutely.
So, in fact, I think we can give links for the outreach program for the museum in our description below this video itself. And people can actually reach out to the museum also. I'm sure that would be uh, convenient, really, for people. There are a lot of people, especially students, who reach out to me on our different handles also. They'd like to know about what courses they can do and how and where, all of that as well. So that
Right.
should be very, very helpful as well there.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have a presentation coming up from you also, which is based on your research on Indian Ocean archaeology. So that is something we're going to look forward to also. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this talk, as well as your presentation on Indian Ocean archaeology as well. And so, what is your next step in the future? What are you moving into now?
Well, I would be wearing several hats, as you know. I would, on my personal front, I would be dabbling a lot into, I would reveal it on your platform right now,
Mhm.
that
Okay.
you know, the 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 author in me, the writer in me, now after retirement is, resurfacing. But I think I would use a lot of my knowledge of the ancient past, especially archaeology, also Indian Ocean or trade or the ports, to
Right.
maybe, script a story, a novel or some story, a fiction based
Awesome.
on, a historical something,
Yes.
So
That's
that is
something very
something.
close to my heart, also, actually.
And that's something which I, have started actually in a small way. And
Okay.
of course, it takes
That's
time.
wonderful.
And the other thing is, of course, apart from my, research papers which I will be writing, I would be, you know, uh, trying to use a heritage platform to give motivational talks, which means that heritage archaeology, it's very rich content. Art and
Yes.
archaeology is very rich content, which we bring to the people, and this content is all about some of the best things that happened in the past, some of the best creations, whether these are beautiful beads or whether it's sculptures, even small beads, the
Right.
technology that was used to make them. So I would like
Yes.
to not only just talk about or give information about what the beads were, but through that, I want to devise a very creative approach. The narration should be such that it brings out the the motivation or inspires people to hire to, because heritage gives out this values of excellence, beauty, to be aspirational, to to draw pride in your past. So I would
Yes.
like to sort of use not use but through heritage, uh, speaking about heritage and information, bring in the element of motivational talks for the younger people.
Right.
That's what
That's
I'm
what we are
exploring.
doing on this channel also, really, to motivate people
Exactly, you are the
to
pioneer of
bring up
this, I would
that
say.
interest in our past and our rich heritage, really.
Absolutely. When you started this channel, the YouTube, I was so happy because you are pioneering this kind of concept, which I think will
Mhm.
bring an more, this very rich content to the public. And then
Right.
I also would like to work with, globally with the Indian Ocean, with museums and institutes to develop
Mhm.
curriculum for, let's say, Indian Ocean past, so that what we have today is that a child growing up in Kenya, going to college in Kenya, who's doing archaeology, would also know about, the archaeology of India or other parts
Right.
of the Indian Ocean. So common curricula, which basically so today, our students, know probably very little unless they specialize about the archaeology, say, of the Persian Gulf, but these are neighboring
Mhm.
places. So when you
Yes.
get to know, your thinking becomes broader, more lateral. So some of this work would be in this thing, and then through this, more, let's say, maybe engagement with policy, trying to
Mhm.
uh, get into the whole idea with the engage with the government to tell them that many parts of a cultural tourism need to engage not only tourism managers who look at hotels and tickets, but you need
Yes.
to bring a lot of archaeologists and historians and young people as content developers and creators into cultural tourism, because that's where,
Excellent.
so you have huge amount of money. I mean, this bothers me a lot now that you speak, that a software engineer earns so much, and what does he have? He has a sort of language, right? He has content, he is applying that.
Okay.
If you look at cultural tourism, there are thousands of people moving across the earth to look at monuments, to visit sites, visits museums. Millions of dollars are being spent. I don't know how much of it is going to actually, people who are from heritage,
Right.
and so there is the big disbalance where a whole tourism industry works on ticketing and, hotels, where most of the money is going. But we need to engage with government and tourism people, and to bring the problem here is that a lot of the content, when I mean content, I mean, suppose you're looking at Qutub Minar or Taj Mahal or the Roman Colosseum, but the people are hungry. What I feel, my experience in the museum is for more knowledge. When I tell them about beads and how they were produced and how far they went, just looking at those boring beads, they become so enlightened, they are very excited. So a lot of content is
There's a
not
lot
coming.
more that goes behind it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very,
That's true.
it's a 10% or 20% that is going. So a lot of the technical stuff to be processed
Mhm.
into here. I want to have more and more heritage people, engaging in, tourism and public archaeology, so that
Right.
money comes to them, different
Yes.
ways.
All right. Sunil, I think we'll have to end this
Right.
interview here, but we will definitely be engaging on a lot of the topics that we've touched upon today, really. There's a lot more that needs to be done, a lot more work that needs to be done also. And we'd love to have you back again over here as well as time progresses, as our work progresses also.
Thank you. Thank
Right.
you so
Wishing
much,
you
Latu. It was a pleasure.
here.
It was wonderful speaking on your channel.
Yes,
Thank you
and
so
I
much.
wish you great success with your book also, and we will want to know more about it as you progress with it also. Right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation today. I think I can say I'm sure you have enjoyed it today. Do let us know, of course. Leave your comments or questions below this video in the comment section, and we will get back to you as well. I'm sure Dr. Gupta would be happy to answer your queries too. Before we end this video, I would like to let you know that we have a presentation coming up by Dr. Sunil Gupta very soon. We will keep you updated on that, of course, but do look out for it. That will be a presentation on Indian Ocean archaeology. A wonderful, amazing presentation, I have to tell you. I have seen it and it is mind blowing. This is something not to be missed. So subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon as well, selecting all option over there so that you get notification for the video when it comes up as well. Thank you for joining us today. Namaste.